Rapport, respect, relationship. That's our motto at WSIP. What do you guys think about it? Oh, yeah.
I try to implement that every time I work with my students. I think we should have thought about who's going first.
I can go first.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell us what you think, Jen. What comes to your mind when you think of our motto?
What comes to my mind is the fact that it's very people focused instead of writing focused. Not that those two are necessarily opposed. But I love that. I love the fact that it doesn't focus on written products or perfection in writing or anything like that, but the way that we connect to actual human beings and support them when they're writing. And I think that that is absolutely what we're all about.
And in this way, we can also get to know our students, not just for their writing needs, but also for their career goals and how they're going to apply their writing skills everywhere else, not just in an academic setting as well.
And I feel like even though it's unofficial, a lot of the time we're kind of in advisory roles too. And like the fact that we do get to know our students. I met with a first gen student yesterday who, you know, was really like very strongly impacted by being first gen. And she was so relieved when I told her, you know, you can come to us with those first gen questions too. You know, just, you know, like that's part of writing in the academy. You know, they're all relevant. So, you know, so I said, well, you have 4 more people now that you can ask these questions to, because you don't have like that community. And she said most of her first year learning was from TikTok.
Oh,
And
wow.
you know, she said, like, I realized I can't ask my mom, she doesn't know, you know, like I don't know other people. I had never been to the U of A until I started attending school here, and I am born and raised in Tucson. Like it was so foreign to me. And you know, like because of just talking about things and not only focusing on, well, what's your writing, where's your comma, you know, like it you know, that came out. And so, you know, now I think she feels a little happy.
Well, because we also create like a safe space for them that we do not just express opinions. A lot of the time students feel they are not able to talk about their needs sometimes or their experiences because it may push them back because they're not supposed to talk about that. They're supposed to know. So we
Right,
create a
yeah.
safe space for them as well.
Yeah, I think that, you know, really early on in my career supporting students, I used to think that it meant only recognizing a writer's autonomy over their own work and being able to say, oh, whatever changes I suggest are only suggestions, and in the end, you get to choose. And now I'm coming to this point of realizing like that's only a very small part of it, that the respect rapport relationship that we really try to embody is about becoming part of their network, right? And really having them understand that whether it's that one drop-in session or, you know, a faculty member we're editing with, or, you know, workshop people, whatever we're doing, that it's about that connection. Like you'll remember working with us because we're listening, we're wanting to know more about your work, and wanting to know who you are. I think, you know, recently we did that social media post that Jen started on LinkedIn, where we asked our alumni to just check in, where you know, where are you at, what you doing? And we had folks that we worked with like 10, 15 years ago hopping on and saying hello. And to me, that is like very symbolic that, oh, okay, we are doing that. We are making those connections that are beyond that brief interaction that we might have with them over their writing.
And from that post actually has sprung like a multi-threaded conversation with one of our people from last year too. So
oh, nice.
So that's been nice to catch up with one of our students from last year and just know what's going on. And and you know, like yeah, just check in.
Yeah. Right, because I think about the work that we get to witness in, you know, in our interactions. I would never have imagined learning about, you know, the things that I learn about just by reading dissertations or course
Mhm.
papers or whatever, you know, from so many different fields, and then to actually see where it's going with that student after they've been with us, and to learn, yeah, like from that post, learning that, oh, I'm an assistant professor here, or I just finished my thesis, or whatever it is that they accomplished, and to remember, oh, I remember when we were talking about, you know, the equations and where you put them in your paper. And I
Right.
remember when we were looking at APA and what do you do with it? And yeah, it's exciting. To me, like that is what it means, that rapport, respect relationship, that it goes beyond that moment we have.
Mhm.
You know, that sense of connection extends into something more meaningful.
That is really a great like thought, and it also makes me think of some of the faculty that we have supported, the early career faculty in like the ODI Pride program, and NACP, and like you know, I'm still in touch with some of those folks, and like, you know, when we started, you know, like we were supporting them in grant applications to try to springboard things, and like now one person I'm in contact with has, you know, gotten a, you know, like new like great position in charge of his own lab, and you know, like he's really doing amazing things. And another person who I, you know, stay just like a little bit in contact with, like I get to see her knitting on Facebook. Like she doesn't post about professional stuff there, but she's a knitter, and it's like
Oh,
it's
that's
just
cool.
it's neat, you know, the different things we see after,
Yeah.
and yeah, and getting to know folks.
Speaking of getting to know them in different arenas, I've even had a few both current and former clients show up in my online Zumba class, which
Oh,
is a
neat.
lot of fun. Yeah,
Awesome.
especially graduate students who've joined more than once. Yeah, who've really come, and so we've developed a totally different kind of, you know,
Yeah.
somewhat educational connection.
Mhm.
That's really neat.
Mhm.
I feel like I don't like to sound cynical, but I feel like this is one of the few places where we actually know our motto and think about it on a regular basis. You know, like that is something else that really just has struck me since I came to WSIP some years ago, is that like, you know, it's meaningful to everyone. It's talked about, you know, we really do pay attention to it regularly, and we kind of evaluate, you know, both our good and hard days based on it, you know, like, I don't know, I think that's pretty cool. Like in the age of corporate lingo, like I feel like our motto is more than that, you know.
Yeah, I think that's something I've appreciated too, is that we we do that reflection, and you know, obviously not all of our encounters feel positive or feel um you know, successful or effective, whatever that may be. And so it's a great opportunity for us to be able to kind of head back to that motto and ask, you know, did we do our best to hit each of those or one of those, or where might we have you know, not failed but dropped the ball a little bit. And sometimes, you know, we just don't connect with people, that's true, but we still want to be able to uphold at least, you know, that sense of respect that we give them, or that sense of, you know, let's have a little, establish a little bit of rapport. um, so it does serve as a really good tool for that, for us as well, to be able to reflect on how we're doing individually and as a whole in meeting the needs of the people who come to work with us.
Yeah, and I feel like it really does enable us to meet those needs better too. You know, had students that I'm working with, and you know, like they ask for what they think they're supposed to ask for, but it's not actually what they need. And in talking to them, you're able to like help them understand what they really need and help them feel comfortable enough to ask for it. And like, and when that connection isn't quite there, it's true, it's harder. Like Jen, I think I told you my last in-person appointment, you know, the young man was there for help with a gen ed class, and it was some literary analysis. And so I was trying to help him understand, you know, like what his professor might mean by this, you know, use of symbolic language and what it means to analyze a text. And I tried so hard to figure out, like, what does he think about in his life? So that I could make analogies between this text and something else, you know, and like, we just had no pop culture references in common, and I couldn't get any pop culture references out of him, really. You know, he was like, yeah, I don't really watch shows. No, not really too many movies. You know, like, yeah, I don't read a lot. And I was like, well, let's come back to the assignment sheet, you know, like I was trying, but so like, yeah. So I've been like wondering, should I email him and just say, hey, remember, you can come back and get to know us more. We're happy to keep helping, you know, just because that connection like didn't establish that time. But I also feel he could use the support, you know, if he would want it. So.
And it's also possible like you didn't feel like the connection happened, but it may be that that student actually felt you cared enough to ask these questions, right? And that may have made him feel more comfortable. I think all of us have had those sessions where we only meet with the student once. We never, you know, don't see them for months and months, maybe even years. And then they tell us, you know, that session we had was so helpful.
Yeah.
And we're thinking, oh, I thought I scared you off. But yeah.
So like, no, I got what I needed out of that session. And yeah, that's true. That's true.
But it also might be not be part of their expectations, because again, a lot of the times they come asking for help, or maybe they're told that they need help. Well, we're trying to go beyond that. And so like, wait a minute, they're trying to make a connection with me, but I need to work on my assignment. What's the trick here? So a lot of the times it feels like, okay, we need to step back also to what their goal was, even if we know the bigger goal would be something else.
Yeah.
I've had ASIM students too, like come to their appointments about personal statements and then start talking and sharing more, and then get embarrassed or sheepish and say, oh, I'm sorry, like we're supposed to be focusing on writing and here I am talking about everything else, you know. And then I tell them, no, that's okay, like that's going to help me give you better feedback on your personal statement, for one thing, you know, because you've just told me about 6 things that sound really relevant to the opportunity you're applying for, but they're not in your statement. So you know, like, yeah, so that's interesting too. Like sometimes they feel like they're not supposed to, you know, cross that boundary, but we're like, no, we can help you so much more if you cross that boundary, if you're comfortable doing so, you know.
Or the students who apologize if they do not have a piece of writing at the moment of the appointment. Like, I'm sorry, I don't have writing, but I need to do this. Like, well, that sounds like it's part of writing because it's pre-writing, post-writing, thinking about it. And so it's just like, that's where you're at. That's what you need. And that will help you for the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. And most of the time, that's not new folks. That's usually people who have already been to us before and are already like somewhat established and comfortable, that they
know they can
end up feeling comfortable enough to come and say, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I think about students who miss their appointments or cancel their appointments at the last minute, and I often wonder if that's the reason, you know, that they set the date anticipating that would help them to actually have a draft ready for review, and then the date comes and they don't. So instead of following through with the appointment, they cancel. And, if only they would know that
Right.
we want to see you, whether you have something written or not. We can help you think about how to get started, and maybe even in a session do some writing together. Yeah, I think again, it kind of goes back to that preconception that a lot of folks have about what the writing process is and what support services are supposed to do during the writing process. And if they would actually talk to writing specialists more frequently, then they'd
Right.
know. Like, it's a
Yeah.
lot more.
It's
We
a
offer so much more. We
Yeah.
want to do so much more.
This may sound humorous, but I consider it positive feedback. Every once in a while, I have a client who at the very end of the session will say, "That was actually really helpful."
You're like,
And
oh,
I
darn.
I think it speaks
All these
to
years
us.
of experience paid off. I'm glad.
Or they tell you, you did very well. I'm like,
Really,
Yeah.
actually, really. But it speaks to what Andrea is saying, and also what Nadia had said. The viewing this as this like obligation. I have to come, and I have to have this draft, and we have to focus only on the draft. And then sometimes it's a positive realization. Oh, I actually got a lot more out of this than just looking at every comma or even every paragraph. We did a lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah.
I think one other area where like our motto really comes out is in our small groups. And even that was some feedback we received from one of our alumni who commented on Jen's LinkedIn post saying that his time with us at WSIP has really served him in supporting his graduate students now that he's a professor. And I've had like multiple graduate students tell me like, I know how to be a better advisor now. I'm going to do a better job in my tenure track professorial position because of WSIP. And, a lot of them also have like really stellar, involved, supportive advisors. It's not like, oh, my advisor was awful, so I'm learning from you guys. But it's just like, they just said, we have learned a ton from our advisors and will of course absolutely be doing, like a lot of the things they do. But we've also learned additional things from working with folks at WSIP and seeing the small groups being facilitated, kind of mirrors that, lab action. And there's, disciplines now are having, like all the advisees meet with their advisor together now to talk about like some of the basics rather than the advisor going through everything with each individual student. And so they said, like they've just really gotten more ideas. Yeah, like they feel more confident in giving feedback. They feel more confident in facilitating that kind of advisory relationship because of their experience in small groups. So like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. And, so many of the graduate students who do work with us are also teaching assistants in their own fields. And so, knowing that the work that they're doing as graduate students may be impacted by what they're experiencing in our small groups or in our tutoring is exciting. And then to know too that it's going beyond that, that's really, that's amazing. I've had occasions where I've been working with graduate students who are TAs and their undergrads are also coming to work with us. And so that's always been really interesting to learn, what are their dynamics? Do they want to know that the other one is coming? And what are they learning from each other? And sometimes you'll get to see that, right? You'll get to see, oh, I remember we talked about that. So that grad student must have taken it back to their class and they're trying it out there. And not to say that we're trying to like infiltrate the world and with writing skills.
I mean, we totally should,
mantra, but yeah,
not,
it's just going to happen naturally. I mean,
right.
I think that would actually be really good.
New plans, world domination.
Yes.
I like it. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm thinking we should probably wrap up for this morning.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for the great discussion.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
All righty, I'm gonna stop recording now.
Okay, cool.